walked into when I came into this industry. I had an MBA from Northwestern in finance. I was very proud of myself and thought I was pretty smart. And I was at McKinsey and Company, the management consulting firm, and I was bored out of my mind. Very bureaucratic, whole bunch of models that I had to use. And one of my friends at McKinsey's husband was a trader down on the Chicago Board Options Exchange. We went out for drinks, and he's like, "Why don't you come down to the Chicago Board Options Exchange floor and start trading?" But why not? So I went down there with him. I had my HP 12C, which was a very sophisticated calculator at that time. There was really no such things as personal computers when I went down there. And the guy who was going to teach me how to trade took that calculator and threw it on the floor and stomped on it and said, "If you can't do these calculations in your head, you will never make it down here." So I started trading. I didn't like the floor very much. I was there for a couple of years. It was the options exchange, which wasn't quite as rough and tumble as the futures floors, but I still felt kind of like this isn't really a place for a nice girl like me. So I got a job upstairs doing brokerage and sales for financial futures options and foreign exchange options, and I liked that a lot better. But again, the room didn't look like this. There were not a lot of women in the industry. And I was surprised because when I was in business school, roughly a third of the students were female when I was in business school, so I didn't feel overwhelmed there. But once you were in the brokerage firms, the only women that were there were either in the back office or maybe in legal and compliance. And so I was on the trading and broking side, and I thought, wow, this is kind of strange. So life went on. I had a few people who took me under their wing. They were all men. They all mentored me. And Julie mentioned how important it is for you to find a mentor. And I found people who were willing to help me and advise me. They caused me to do things that were uncomfortable for me. Like they said, "You should really take people out for lunch, and get to know them better." And I thought, whoa, taking these guys out for lunch? I have to laugh now. There was an article in the New York Times last week, 2 weeks ago, how roughly half of the United States thinks that it's inappropriate for a woman to go out with a man for lunch for business. And I was just shocked by this, because even in the 80s and the 90s, I was going out to lunch with guys and trying to find out what they did and how I could learn more. And it was very productive. And I had a very good career. I was very successful. I ended up in senior management at a major futures commission merchant. Then 1 year at BOCA, the FIA's annual conference, which is fabulous, I looked around the room. The room didn't look like this. The room was still lots of dark suits. Granted, there was some diversity. You had some Asians there. You had some, Hispanics from Latin America. But there still were not a lot of women. There were a lot of women, though, who were very important in the industry, including John's right-hand person, Marianne Burns, Kim Taylor over at the CME. And so a bunch of us, Kim, Marianne, decided to go out for dinner. And this was in early 2000s. But let's go out for dinner and let's just talk about this. Like, what's going on here? The industry has not changed that much. So we all went out for dinner. Oh, where do I do it? Oh, there we go. Okay. So we went out for dinner. We said, we should do something about this. Like, why aren't we getting more women in the industry? It's really the same as it's been for 20 years. There are a few of us. We're in senior positions, but what are we doing wrong here? Why aren't women coming into the industry, and why aren't women staying and moving into senior roles? So I formed a group called, I stayed up one night trying to come up with a name. Let's see, Women in Futures, WIF, nah. Women in Derivatives, I think there already was a group called that. And then it came to me, Women in Listed Derivatives, WILD. We developed a logo, and then there was a woman working for John who had another group of women, young women, that were trying to break in and support each other to take on more responsibility and kind of network their way into other jobs. And so Jessica and I got together and thought, well, why should we have two groups? Let's put our group together. And WILD was formed about 6 years ago. So since then, our membership has tripled. We have a presence in North America, obviously. In Latin America, we have a big group in Mexico right now. London has a very active group. We have started 2 satellites, one in Frankfurt, one in Amsterdam, and we're starting some subgroups in Asia as well. So, yay. So what's the purpose of WILD? It's not it's not for us to get together and complain, okay? We don't go out to lunch and complain about how bad things are. The mission of Wild is to empower women to figure out the good way to make it in this industry. What are the keys to success? How do you find a mentor? How do you learn about what's going on in this industry? What can you do to make your presence known? What is good about the industry? Let's educate other women on what's in this industry. A lot of women aren't going into finance anymore. A lot of women aren't going into tech. Why is that? These are really fun, cool areas. So we have been spending the past few years developing educational programs and mentorship programs, the senior women like me and the younger women who are networking, to reach out to all sorts of women and get them involved in the industry. We're doing a big effort right now working with a couple of recruiters to go on campus and get women interested in the futures industry and the options industry, because it's cool. I mean, there's lots of wonderful opportunities. Entrepreneurship, I didn't want to work for McKinsey. I know that's a great job if you're a super duper MBA superstar, but I was bored to tears. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to prove myself. I was in my 20s. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I thought I was smarter than I was. So I went down on the floor and was very quickly taught that I had to learn things the hard way. But that's a good way to learn. If you go through an organization, you don't necessarily learn those things so quickly. If you lose all your life savings, you learn pretty quickly how to trade a little bit better. So what does Wild do? As I said, we have a mentorship program. We take on the senior women have a template that we've developed that they use to help women go to lunch with other people. We have topics. We bring in educational and motivational speakers. Next month, we're going to do a recruitment and how to use LinkedIn workshop. That's something I actually need to go to. I'm a little bit older, and I haven't really figured out how to use LinkedIn yet. I did get a headshot done, but other than that, I haven't really learned how to use it. A lot of our younger women are very adept at it and have been helping me. And then in the fall, we're going to do a how to manage your money workshop, because we're finding that a lot of the women aren't really all that knowledgeable on what you do to position, how do you buy a house? How do you save? Some of our women have had divorces recently, and they have young children, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to survive that. So we're trying to develop some helpful ways to help women participate in an industry. How do you have kids? I have an interesting challenge right now. My mother has Alzheimer's. So here I am. My kid is old enough that she doesn't need me that much anymore, but my mother needs me. How do I manage my own financial consulting business and still take care of my mother? These are all topics that we thought would be helpful to women. And in fact, we have opened up some of our seminars to everybody, because we've found that some of our male colleagues are very interested in these topics as well. So it's a great, it's been a great journey. It's been fabulously successful. I wish Jessica were here too, because we put it together ourselves. And I guess if you have time and want to come up and chat with me afterward and just tell me what it is you like about this industry and what you would like to see more of, I'd be interested in hearing it, because what we found was that there was kind of a plateau on women coming in the industry. And in fact, there were more women trading in the 80s than I see now. I was just at a proprietary trading firm. 4 out of 100 traders were female. Why is that? When I was on the floor, it was a higher percentage than that. I think it's mostly because the floor was more social than trading is now. Now you're on your computer and doing your quantitative calculations, and I think that that's not as appealing to women as it is to men, so we didn't see as many women. But I still feel like trading is a really good thing. It's a good way of measuring your success quickly and not waiting for years to find out if you're really good at something or not. So we'd like to do whatever we can to try and attract women into the industry, and I'm excited to be here. I've been in the industry for 40 years now, so good to be here. Thanks.